Hello, buongiorno. This is Frederick Ilchman, and I'm here in Boston, just back from Venice, where I was yesterday. And welcome all of you to Exploring Titian's Assunta, a new interactive website. And it's just gone live, this new website. We're terribly excited about it and want to share this with you. Thank you all of you coming, friends of Say Venice members, people in the scholarly community, as well as people who just love this amazing painting. And if you don't mind, why don't you put in the chat, you can write down where you're coming from and indicate your name and your town, or even just just the town if you like, or the country. But we have people, I suspect, from a very broad range who are interested in this topic. I'm the chairman of Say Venice, but also a art historian and lifelong fan of this painting. First time I saw it at about age 18, I was absolutely blown away. The painting and its enormous stone frame were both conserved in the late 2000 teens, and I celebrated with official inauguration in October or the autumn at least, of 2022, coinciding more or less with, say, Venice's 50th anniversary. And that conservation treatment was sponsored by Beatrice de Santo Domingo and also the Jasmine Charity Trust in honor of Regina Jaglan Wachter. And today, a different set of sponsorships by Claudia Foscari and Ferigo Foscari have paid for this microsite, or this website. It's not that micro, as you'll see in a moment. Look, I see quite a lot of people. We have, oh boy, so well over 75 now, all over the United States, all over Europe. This is great news. So I'm the first speaker, then Davide Gasparotto, who's the head of the curator of paintings at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, and Gabriele Matino, another art historian, and he's the Say Venice research fellow. And the three of us will be talking about this, and later on taking your questions. If you want to put them in the chat, that would be great. And that way we will get to as many as possible. If you have a chat question that does not get answered, we will try to track you down and make sure you get a proper response. So let's start with our first slides as we explore Titian's Assunta in this new website. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about getting closer to Titian, and in the sense of this amazing painting and what's it like to be in its physical presence, right? When you open the doors of the Frari from the little company Frari and start walking in, the painting is visible soon after you get inside. Next one. And there we have that. Now we've come down the steps, gone in quite a bit into the nave. And this is someone who was very important to Say Venice for decades. This is David Rosand, a professor at Columbia University, my professor among taught many other people as well, specialist in Paolo Veronese, other artists, but particularly Titian. And you see the smile on his face. This was just about his last trip to Venice. I think his second to last trip to Venice before his death in the summer of 2012. And he looks very happy there. And you see how beautifully the pre-existing Renaissance choir, the arch there, frames Titian's painting, or in other words, how Titian's painting was he accommodated his painting to that arch. So this was a Say Venice board visit in 2012. Next slide. So, as I said, Titian occupied him his whole career. He wrote a number of important articles, not just on Titian and books on Titian, but also on this very specific painting. These are some notebooks kept at Columbia University, and this page shows Titian's two great paintings, one in the left aisle of the nave, the Madonna Capesero, between the third and fourth giant pier supporting the roof, and then the other one, of course, is the high altar, which is the Assunta, created between 1516 and 1618. And what he's doing here in this is imagining Titian's point of view, or the viewer's point of view, as you get closer and closer to the high altarpiece, and also as you look towards your left and see the Madonna Capesero, the Madonna of the House of Pesaro, the Pesaro family, that great altarpiece with the group portraits. As you get closer and closer and see it from an oblique angle and then a smaller and smaller angle until you eventually look at it head on. Next slide. Now, this is what I mentioned a minute ago. how Titian accommodated the spectacularly large, really impressive stone frame and to the existing sort of 1480s Renaissance choir screen and arch. So there's real coordination right there. And next one. As you get closer, this is the point I just mentioned, which David Rosen articulated so beautifully in his articles, that you can approach the Madonna di Capezero altarpiece first from the left, where you see it really works as an extension of the actual space, and you see the St. Peter in the middle, which of course refers to the links of this family, the Pesaro family, with the papacy, and then the Virgin Mary and Child up at the back, and the way the architecture, the massive piers reflect those within the building, and even the chessboard paving is like that of the actual church. Next one. And there we see this head on. So this painting could be understood and worked beautifully from both angles. Really, and I will point out, this was also a Save Venice restoration. Indeed, the dedication of Titian of Save Venice to Titian's paintings in and outside of Venice has been a major theme or focus of Save Venice. And in fact, Davide Gasparotto and Gabriele Matino will speak about that at the end, because they're editors of a major book that will be coming out within a year on Titian's conservation of Titian paintings in Venice, undertaken by Save Venice. And these will be lots of new technical information and frankly spectacular photographs. Next. And now we've passed through, or we're in the choir, and you see just the scale of the painting. It's a huge painting, commonly called the largest painting on wooden panel in the world. But even there, it is not so big when compared to the very large Gothic presbytery of the Church of the Frari. But also from this distance, you notice how beautifully the composition, one of great geometric simplicity, lines up with the architecture. The apostles below line up with the bottom set of windows, the Virgin Mary in a sort of heavenly golden circle, with God the Father above, angels all around in a circle, how that lines up with the second set of windows. Beautifully calibrated. Next one. Now we're getting really close, and the painting and its frame take over. The Roman triumphal arch frames the picture. All sorts of things were discovered about the materials in the frame. But what we're here today is not so much about the frame, but really about the painting. Next one. And then you get really close. And as you get really towards the foot of the steps, the painting takes over, and everything else really sort of falls away. The amazing sense that Titian has in silhouetting various limbs, feet, or arms makes a complicated composition quite legible, even despite the difficult backlighting. And of course, I'll admit that modern electric lighting illumination really does make a difference. But it was striking to see this painting, which I thought was so beautifully, richly colored, bright, distinct individual hues, very clear before the cleaning and restoration treatment. Now what we see, though, is much sharper, with greater subtlety, much more depth. All the good things one likes to come out of a conservation treatment, all these happened and much more. Now, this is about as close as one could get, right? Even if you have special permission, you still have the steps and then the altar itself blocking your view. But what's exciting about this website, this new microsite, the one sponsored by Claudia and Ferigo Foscari, is that it lets you get even closer. In fact, it lets you get as close as the restorer, Giulio Bono, or maybe even as close as the painter himself. The next one. So now I'm going to turn this over to an expert on Renaissance art, and he does sculpture and painting equally well. But Davide Gasparotto was really the inspiration behind this site. He had heard and seen other websites which went into an enormous amount of attention for a single painting. But what's special about this one, I think, is not just let's say, the resolution of the imagery, but what it allows you to see in terms of its comparison mode. So, Davide?
Thank you very much, Frederick. It's a great pleasure to be here today with you. As Frederick was saying, my name is Davide Gasparotto. I'm currently the Senior Curator of Paintings at the J. Paul Getty Museum, but I'm also board member of Save Venice, and in particular, within our organization, I chair the Educational Resources Committee, which has in some way something to do with the idea of creating this website devoted to the assumption. Perhaps we can go, if we can go backward one slide, so while I talk at the beginning, we can see the assumption. So our journey with the assumption, as Frederick was saying, was quite long. Titian he painted this majestic, huge panel painting, more than 7 meters high in 2 years, between 1516, 1518. It took us about 10 years to, you know, conceive and undertake the complex conservation project of this incredible masterpiece of the High Renaissance. Because we started in 2012, actually, with maintenance and preliminary technical investigation. There was also then the important thing of removing the organ, the electric organ, which was placed behind the painting at a later date, obviously, and it was creating a lot of problems because it was attached directly to the panel. It was creating dangerous vibrations. It had an old electrical, you know, setting, which could have been potentially dangerous for the painting. And then from 2018 to 2022, we had the proper conservation campaign, conservation treatment, which was undertook, as you might know, by Conservator Giulio Bono, who worked really tirelessly for 4 long years, including the time of the pandemic, when he got special permission to be alone in the church with the painting. Long days alone, you know, cleaning and you know, studying the surface and cleaning the painting. Along the entire process, and this obviously was very important, we carefully documented step by step all the different phases of the conservation treatment. So we now have a really extensive, exceptional photographic campaign, which was undertook by Matteo De Fina, a Venetian photographer, and a lot of technical investigation on the painting. Because, I mean, a restoration, it's always, when it's well done, when it was well conceived and executed, is always an occasion to better understand the painting we are treating from the technical point of view. And this was crucial to clarify in some way many aspects of Titian's creative process, really how Titian painted the Assunta in situ, probably, as we know now. And so we learned a lot from this treatment, and we wanted, as Save Venice, and especially with my committee, the Educational Resources Committee, we really wanted to share with the general public and the specialists alike what we learned and what is possible to learn about Titian painting technique through this careful documentation of each phase of the restoration campaign. If we now go further, we had 2 websites in mind when we started to think about like a small website devoted to the conservation of the Assunta, which has been done in recent years. There was, in recent years, you might remember a big exhibition on Hieronymus Bosch in Hertogenbosch in the Netherlands, and an associated campaign of restoration and analysis of many paintings by Bosch. So there is a very wonderful website which was devoted to Bosch, where you can really do some of the same things that you can do in the website that we created and that Gabriele Matino will illustrate after me. The second is, and we go to the next slide, is the incredibly rich and interesting website devoted to the restoration of one of the greatest masterpieces of Western painting, the Ghent altarpiece by Jan van Eyck in Ghent, in the Cathedral of San Bavo in Ghent, which has been a long process, still in process in some way. And from this website, you can also learn a lot about, you know, the restoration, the Van Eyck's painting technique, and everything that was possible to discover during the conservation campaign. So our website, as Gabriele will show you, allows to, on one side, study the painting in detail before and after restoration, but also to compare the image of the painting in visible light with the infrared. And obviously from the infrared investigation, we can clearly see Titian some way approaching the panel with the drawing. And obviously this has been very important. We can see many pentimenti that probably later Gabriele will show you. For me, and then there is a section of the website when you can really look at fantastic close-ups, fantastic details of the painting, where you really can marvel in front of Titian incredibly rich and free painting technique. For me, I mean, having the chance and the fortune to be for many times on the scaffold, looking at the painting with Giulio Bono, this was already something that I sort of learned there on site. But like here, we give the opportunity to everybody really in some way to be on the scaffold, close up, very, you know, face to face really with Titian, with these fantastic details where you can see Titian thick impastos, sometimes almost abstract forms that then they make sense only seen from afar, because as Frederick was saying, the composition was really conceived to be seen from afar, to be extremely effective from afar. But then when we go close, we can really marvel to the freedom with which Titian approached his creation. And in some way, the painting for me, it's so extraordinary because obviously it marked the beginning of an extremely incredible successful career, marked the dominance of Titian into the Venetian artistic scene. But also we can really see in the Assunta in some way encompassed the entire career as a painter of Titian. We can see the brushstroke that then will characterize his old age. So it's a painting that in some way encapsulates the entire career of Titian. And for me, this is really extraordinary, and you can really appreciate this through the fantastic close-ups that is possible to see in this website. And with that, I think you all will be curious to see what we have accomplished with this website. I would like to thank all my colleagues from Save Venice, and especially Claudia and Ferigo Foscari, that made possible to create this website. And with that, I will pass to Gabriele for an illustration of what you can see with our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Davide, for your kind words. Here we are. I hope you all can see it. Hello, everyone. I'm Gabriele Matino. I'm senior researcher at Save Venice, and the one who had the pleasure and the honor to work on this incredible project. And I want, again, Debbie mentioned already, but I really want to mention how the support of Claudia and Ferigo Foscari made the difference. So what you're looking at right now is the landing page, the main page of the Assunta website. So the Assunta Restore. This is a website that will allow you to explore Titian masterpiece like never before. And this is really true. The third thing that I want to mention is how in designing it, we wanted to, mirror both in design and outline, Save Venice main website. So, we immediately recognize who is behind this. And in fact, there is the Save Venice logo right in the middle here at the top, which if you click on it, will redirect you to the Save Venice main site. Now, the first page that you see is a home, and it gives you an introduction and the goals and the aim of this website. I won't go on this since I guess both Frederick and Davide cover this topic quite extensively. One thing that I want to do, though, is to attract your attention to the conservation. You see how here at the top there is a row of tabs. If you move your arrow on the conservation one, there is a drop down and you can click on summary. This will lead you on, indeed, a summary of a long conservation treatment Davide mentioned before that Sevenis undertook on the Assunta. We start with the 2012 diagnostic campaign. There is a description of what was done. And then you are introduced to one of the features of this website. There is a carousel, that is a slideshow that you can navigate horizontally. And this allows you to see the Assunta as it looked like when we start working on it, covered with this thick layer of dust and green, but also with problems like cracks and other issues, and then some cleaning test. As you scroll down, you'll find a reference to the 2018-2022 conservation campaign, the proper conservation campaign. Again, a description of what was done, and then another carousel. Now, my idea here was to give a face and a name to all the remarkable and skillful people who work at this project and made this project so successful. This was the result of a team effort, and my idea was to document them, show them to everyone. So we start with Roberto Saccuman, who mainly focused on the support, but it was also the mind behind the sliding of the Assunta behind the stone altar. And then, of course, the Unisve team is securely follow all the different procedure in sliding the altarpiece, some technology behind it. This is a rare picture of Matteo De Fina, the photographer. Davide mentioned it before. Matteo De Fina took hundreds of pictures before, during, and after the conservation treatment. And basically, it's thanks to him that this website was possible to create. The following slide introduces the main character of this old project. That is, of course, Titian, the Assunta, but also Giulio Bono, the one who worked his magic and restored this incredible masterpiece. You can see him studying the Assunta right now, here together with his assistant, Silvia Bonifacio, consolidating the painting, then cleaning, and the process, of course, went on and on. The old project also involved the conservation of the stone frame and all the sculptures that crown that stone frame. So you see here Gidio Arlango with his assistant working on those sculptures. Look at the remarkable result of the cleaning of the stone frame. The use of new technology. This is laser technology, which allowed to recover the original blue and the gold of the stone. And then eventually we got to the unveiling of the Assunta at the end of the conservation treatment. Now, it is time now to focus on the two main highlights of this website. These are placed two tabs and the two sides of the Save Venice logo. To the left, you see a tab titled Comparison Mode. The drop-down divides into two different sections. One is before and after, and the other one is infrared reflectography. Davide mentioned it, but let me show that to you. Now, the before and after shows you the painting before to the left and after the conservation treatment to the right. Now, what you can do is that you can look at them simultaneously, moving through all the painting, zooming in and zooming out, moving at the top, again, getting very close to the painting and then zooming out and going down. This is quite an incredible result if you think about it. Sometimes it takes a little bit too low. This is also because of the zoom call, but as you can see, the result is incredible. One other feature that you can do with this function is to look at just a single image. Here at the bottom is currently a compare modes, but if you click on the macro photography after, you will just look at the painting after be restored. Again, you see how smooth it is, how close you can get to the painting. And the same thing happened with the macro photography before, where you can look at the painting before being restored, basically. So it's quite straightforward in the way it functions and in the way it shows you the things. even more remarkable is the infrared reflectography. Again, let me explain what you're looking at right now. To the right, you see the painting, actually the image of the painting after being restored. To the left is a black and white image that shows you the underdrawing. That was done, the image, through the infrared microphotography that allows you to see the underdrawing, so to go through the paint layer, paint layer, and look at Titian in the actual creative process, his own drawing. And that will also allows you to, well, see and explore a number of what we say in Italian pentimenti. There are changes in mind, slightly changes in the compositional construction. Let me make a few examples. If you look at it, I hope you all can see the outline of a forearm and the hand here. Let me zoom out a little bit. This shows you that Titian at the beginning envisioned the figure of the Virgin with the left arm outstretched, and then he changed his mind in the way as he was painting. Very close to it, there is another pentimento. Let's get closer to it. Can you see this? This is a face of an angel, which was actually painted, not just drawn. And here to the right, you can see in the painting how Titian decided to remove it and paint it over. So there are these kind of pentimenti, and I want to show you a few more because they're quite amazing. Let's move down to this really iconic angel. Now, if we get closer, I hope you all can see how originally Titian thought to represent it with this feathered wing, and also with a cloud supporting the body of the angel. And then apparently what we're looking at is that he's removing things from the composition. He's making it simpler. He's making it more easy to interpret. Two more examples that I want to show, and then we move to another feature. What you can see here is one of the disciples. You see how originally he had the two arms and hands raised, quite similar in a way to the position of the Virgin. Probably that is one of the reasons why he decided to change his mind, and he had the hands clasped, as you can see here in the painting. And the last example, I promise, this is quite incredible. So once you start looking for pentimenti, you won't stop. I hope you can see that. So here we can actually detect a nose, two eyes, 1 and 2, and a mouth here. If we zoom out, probably you can see better. It is this figure with this head. Originally, Titian thought to have it looking at St. Peter, is the one here sitting next to the Virgin sarcophagus. But then he changed his mind. And if you look at the painting, he decided to turn the face to the other direction, probably to make this three-dimensionality of the composition more coherent, giving the idea of all these different figures standing around the sarcophagus of the Virgin. Even on this occasion, you can look only on the painting after being restored, or only on the infrared microphotography. Well, to sum up, I guess this is a very remarkable tool from many different points of view. First of all, scholars will have a new, refreshing way of looking at Titian and his work from a very new perspective. But I also think this is a very useful tool for teachers in order to teach students not only to observe a great master as Titian in the way he creates his composition, but also learn how to look at infrared reflectography, which sometimes can be challenging, but is really rewarding if you think about what we saw. And then, of course, there is everyone who loves Renaissance art or loves Venice. And if you love Venice and art, well, of course, you love Titian. And this is a great way to discover and look at Titian. The other highlight that I want to focus, and then you can make questions during the Q&A, and we can go over to the iconography and Estradar, minor things which will be more populated over time. But let's focus on the close-up of the Assunta. Now, this is the result of an incredible photographic campaign by Matteo De Fina with his own camera. He actually mapped nearly 25 square meters of painting. It was an incredible endeavor, if you think about it. The idea here is to look at the painting very close. In order to help you navigate it, I decided to divide the painting in different sections, starting from the very top. Here you look at the upper top of the figure of the Virgin with a part of the God above her. So this is to represent this image, to represent the section that we're going to explore. And then again, a carousel that you can scroll horizontally and look at very incredible details. Very incredible. Every time I look at them, I almost turn speechless. Now, what you're doing is to look at Titian, or actually as you look at the Assunta, as only Titian could do. Probably even Giulio Bono, but Titian for sure. You see how now we're moving downwards, is just focusing on the clothing of the Virgin, so the dress and the blue mantle, but also the angel. And what you see is something very close to what Davide mentioned before as an abstract art. Look at these brushworks. Now, looking at this, it's quite incredible to think about this style. It seems very close to what we have normally called the late Titian, the Titian in the late 1550s, 1560s, where he was famous for his non finito, his unfinished painting. There's a very loose and free brush strokes. It was more of an aesthetic rather than just a style. And it's quite incredible to rediscover Titian in that way in the 15, 16, 18, quite early in his career. This is something that you will, discover and never expect. So here you see how we're moving downwards. There are a few examples that are very, very remarkable. Look at the way he paints and uses the brush. This is really, really something. As we move downward, we reach the bottom of the painting. This is the group of the disciples, all placed around the sarcophagus of the Virgin. As we scroll horizontally, something comes up. If you compare this way of painting to the non finito painting that I mentioned before, you see how the style has changed. Here is very precise, meticulous. Here Titian is taking more care, right, in representing things. And that is some sort of a change of style in the painting itself. So at the top, he decided to use this really loose brush stroke, whereas as he gets closer to the bottom, where people could get closer to the painting, it gets more precise. So the painting is made in order to create some sort of a dialogue with the perception of the beholder who approaches the painting. And then it's just remarkable. Look at this detail. Only Titian could paint something like this, and it is really, really amazing. Again, other details. We're getting closer to the hands. I don't want to spoil it all, so as you saw, I just skipped a number of slideshow. This is the last detail that I want to show. So basically, what I will say is to allow yourself to explore, discover, not just this website, but through this website, discover Titian and look at it from a completely different view and have Titian amaze you, I would say. I think I could stop the presentation right now and move to the Q&A session, or have Davide and Frederick chime in if they want to.
Gabriele, would you just, besides, it's so beautiful to linger over the, I mean, it's really quite something, those details. Can you show a little bit more about, I mean, have you shown all the things across the menu at the top?
Yeah, absolutely. So the menu at the top, you're referring to the rows of tabs. We start with home, conservation. There is a summary as well as a video. The summary we saw before is a summary of the conservation treatment. The video is a video that was produced by St. Venice in the occasion of the conservation treatment, when the conservation treatment was finished, and at the inauguration. And actually, it's a video, I'm quite proud of it, that is still playing at the Basilica dei Frari. And is in English. The Basilica we have in both languages. The comparison mode was the scribe, the close-up as well. We can go very fast to the altar frame. This is more about documenting the different phases in the conservation treatment of the stone part. As you can see, again, this is a website, so we're planning to increase the kind of the images and the content, but well, there is still a lot, I guess. What do you think, Frederick? Okay, so this is all about the cleaning process of the stone frame. Then there is the iconography. Is a short test that will, explain the Assunta from different point of view, the iconography, the composition, the theological theme, also in light of what we have learned more about the painting following the conservation treatment. One thing that we are thinking right now is to add here a section with the essays by the authors of the Titian book that was mentioned before. Once the book is published, we would like to publish here the content of the two essays, one by an art historian, that is the director of the Galleria dell'Accademia, Giulio Manieri Elia, and the other one, the restorer, Giulio Bono, who worked on the conservation itself. Then there is the extra feature. Currently, there is a video. There is a beautiful concert that was played in honor of the conservation of the Assunta at the Frari, in front of the Assunta. It was kind of a really incredible event. And this links to our YouTube page. I hope I made it more clear in terms of what we offer here.
That's excellent. No, thank you for that summary. And again, just these details where you see the actual individual brush strokes or the brush hairs even. I mean, the whole thing is just it's really mind-boggling. I like the carousels. I think that's very beautiful. It's quite impressive. So first question is obvious, I think, for you and Davide, maybe obvious for everyone watching now. Which is, though, a great advantage of a website over a book is it can be updated and changed. So how often do you think things can be updated, or when will there be the next group of images or information? And also, besides putting content that already exists, what about commissioning things? Wouldn't it be interesting to get an artist or a conservator to do a quick video, for example, or write some observations down and put them under the extras?
I agree completely. That's the beauty of the website. You can actually populate with whatever comes up to your mind. So things that can be commissioned, there could be videos. As I mentioned before, we would like to publish here, the chapter from the Titian book, which is really useful because you can compare new graphics worked out by Giulio Bono and Giulio Manieri Elia, and compare them to the infrared reflectography in the comparison mode. So that could be really useful. And then in terms of, how often, every time we want, we have literally hundreds of pictures by Matteo De Fina. So there is no limits to what we can show. This is already, there is a lot here in the website, but we can really, really improve it over time.
And if I can add something, in some way, the creation of this website, the idea of the website came really out from working on the Titian book, when we realized that we had so much, and in terms of documentation, but also that it was really impossible in a book to have the same degree of, precision, to be so close, to have the possibility to zoom into the images. So in some way, the instrument of the website complements in a perfect way the content of the book, and makes it even more richer. I mean, much more rich, because you can really explore the painting inch by inch, which any book will allow it to do in the same way.
Right. Well, that's a great point. Now, how much information is already currently on this website about the frame and its details?
In terms of visual documentation, there is a lot. In terms of research, is something that we are planning to integrate in the extras section. I mentioned how we could put the Manieri Elia and Giulio Bono. There is also a lot of material by Egidio Orlango, as well as Roberto Saccuma. So that is material that we can actually include here. In terms of the different reports, it gets more complicated. First of all, as you've seen now, the whole website is in English. I'm planning to translate it soon into Italian, so that we can have both languages. In terms of what we have in our archives for the conservation report and so on and so forth, everything is in Italian. So we need to, first of all, try to decide what we can and we want to share. That is also up to the owners of the work of art to put it, in the public domain.
Great.
I see, Gabriele, like a question in the chat
Mhm.
is about the pentimenti. They say, could it be Lattanzio Querena's touches? No, I would say no, absolutely, because I think the restoration, what Lattanzio Querena added to the painting was removed over the course of the restoration. And also the pentimenti, I mean, they are underneath the paint
Yeah.
layer. So the pentimenti they are about the design, the drawing moment on the gesso ground, when really Titian starts,
Yeah.
designing the figures. So the pentimenti are definitely Titian's pentimenti,
Yeah.
not another painter.
Yes, absolutely. We're looking at the underdrawing, so something that we cannot see in the normal light with our eyes, but is hidden behind the paint layer. Also, well, from one certain point of view, the painting was in good shape when Giulio Bono started working on it. Those parts who were in real danger was those restored, if you want to use this term, by Lattanzio Querena, and they were removed because they were hurting in a way the original painting. You can see here that one of the section was indeed Saint Peter's knees and all the mantle here. That was one of the issue with the painting in relation to what Querena did. But this is a great question, because it tells a lot about the story of this painting. But now in terms of what we see the pentimenti, this is all truly Titian. Look at the hand, this is just another one, how it kept changing the position, not only of the hand, but also the arm, which became so iconic in the connection between, the disciples and the clouds of the Virgin.
Fantastic. Are there other questions? If people have questions, please feel free to jump in, put them in the chat or the Q&A. Either section works. I mean, Gabriele, you mentioned something which I think is quite important, is that it obviously costs, time and money, space to host all this information. And so we need to be selective and not do every detail and not every, conservation report or proposal, etc. But I think it's fair to say that the goals are in the next year or two to add quite a bit to this. So the website will be a lot more, much richer than it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there is a lot now that you can already appreciate, but we can improve it. This is also the beginning, I hope. This is, it could be the beginning of something more in terms of trying to use this example for new project. This is something that we are considering. It might be an idea. And for, some of the great conservation treatment that we are doing and we will do in the future.
I've also seen in the chats people asked, for example, about including some of David Roseanne's publications on the paintings. That would be, assuming we can obtain copyright, that would be very much worth doing.
Yeah.
David Landau asks about who carved the frame and its figures.
If I'm not wrong, that was Bregno. Davide, can you assist me on this?
Yes. I mean, the sculptures that are on top of the frame are, yes, attributed to, I think, Giovan Battista Bregno, or I'm not sure now if it's Giovan Battista or Lorenzo Bregno, maybe Lorenzo. And the frame, probably, maybe by the workshop of Bregno. There are, I don't know if we have images of the two angels that are painted on the spandrels that were sort of rediscovered during the restoration.
It should be at the
They're
end of this
almost completely
slideshow.
blank. Very hard to see.
There you are. This is when they were discovered, and we can really use this word. And this is the example of the one to the right. There's been a lot of debate about the authorship of this angel, if indeed they were painted by Titian himself or someone else looking at the angels in the painting and try to mirror the style and the anatomical study. This is up to debate. It's something not that common to find these parts of the frame painted rather than sculptured.
So what other questions do we have? This is a good opportunity to ask them. What else what do people have? Would like to know more about? Someone asked about the address for the site. We put that in again.
Yes, I can also show you. So as I said at the beginning, this mirrors our website, and the logo right in the middle here at the top is if you click on it, you will be redirected to our main website. This is our main website, what you see on the screen. And of course, he advertises the Assunta restore, what we're talking right now. Here at the top, we added a new tab called Explore. If you move your arrow on the Explore, the drop down will lead you with the Assunta restore and redirect directly to the actual Assunta website.
Question about the medium for the underpainting. I mean, to be detected in with infrared technology, it has to have carbon in it. Is that right?
Yeah, it does. And not always the infrared reflectography can capture everything that is underneath it. So it's not always that simple. We see different ways of drawing, mostly with brush on this occasion. Other with charcoal. You see, is a different material, of course. You can actually see if you get closer to the painting, you can see the trace is still in blue of the drawing of that arm that was painted. I mean, using a brush there, but then you can see the charcoal here.
Good point. Just now, someone mentioned about the scale of the painting. Yes, it's really enormous. As a picture, the human figures in it are much larger than life size. So, I mean, Titian is, I think, not just making a statement or responding to the scale of the building, which of course requires something really large, but also creating for the first time truly superhuman figures, putting them on a new level, and indeed maybe you could say putting Venetian art on a new level.
Yeah, this is also speaks about where this painting was made and when changes were made. One idea could be that the painting was mainly drafted in a certain advanced stage and then placed on the altar and looked from afar. Titian realized to remove some parts or, simplify the composition, as I said before. This seems to be something very common, at least in the early Titian. The Palla Pesaro that was mentioned before, the Capesaro altarpiece, shows the same thing. All the sculpture and the architecture, actually, rather than sculpture, in the background, went through at least 5 different phases. This will be discussed in the Titian book, so I really, really suggest you to, be tuned, because that book is going to change your perception of that painting. And even there, Titian kept removing details and part of the architecture in order to make the composition simple. Same thing happened here, probably by looking at it already on the altar and looking from afar.
Fabulous. It's really quite something. Great question also by Rotella Zorzi, asking about and I think it's a wonderful idea, including a sort of summary of some of the great comments made in the critical literature. People like John Ruskin, who wrote eloquently and had real emotional or intellectual responses to this. That would be easy to assemble a few of those to give a visitor to this a sense of how this painting, it's, fortuna critica, how it's been understood over time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the feedback. This is a great idea, actually. And again, it's a website, so we can include more and whatever comes up to our mind. This is a good idea. Thank you.
What is the wood actually that forms the support? What kind of wood?
I think it's poplar, if I'm correct.
Yes,
sounds right.
It is poplar, yes.
Now, looking at the comments and the questions, an obvious question perhaps, though, but I think worth addressing. Okay, Davide, you run this committee about educational resources on the Save Venice board, and of course, you're yourself a very published author. What other works of art restored by Save Venice might deserve a similar website on this scale with a lot of detail and using really up-to-date technology like this?
I mean, we just, and you just celebrated in Venice the completion of the conservation treatment of on Tintoretto's crucifixion from the Sala dell'Albergo de Scuola di San Rocco. I think that painting could be a great candidate for a
Go
website
Tintoretto.
on this model, because it's a very large composition. It's full of figures, full of details. I mean, the painting technique is quite extraordinary and complex, very different from Titian's, but there are a lot of, changes, pentimenti. So, I mean, that could be a great candidate. I think we are already thinking about it. And perhaps it would be interesting also to apply the same model to a Quattrocento painting, which we are sort of beginning right now, which is the Bellini's Frari triptych from 1488, the great triptych by Bellini, which again could represent an interesting candidate for a potential micro website.
Great. Question from Philip Rylands, who wrote down, wanted to know, what's the evidence that Titian painted this from the top down or from the bottom up? Wondering, would it be instructive if the loose brushwork precedes the tighter finish below? That was the looser part done first, or the other way around?
Yeah. I can't say that if you started from the top or from the bottom. What I can say, at least from my point of view, is that there is a difference in the way he painted. If you focus on this kind of details and this way of painting, look at the feathers here, and we are quite at the top of the painting, and then we move down and look at these faces. It is, I think, clear how the style is different. And so I'm not saying that he started painting from the top and then he moved down, or the other way around. I'm just, I was kind of amazed to see this different way of paintings, and probably it's made because of perception, something that you see very far, so it doesn't need to be that precise at the top of the painting, whereas then at the bottom of it, where at least, monks and beholder can get closer. It's just an idea. It was surprising to see a Titian like this in the 1560s, in 1516, sorry, 18, something that I wouldn't expect for other, 40 years.
I mean, the painting clearly marks in some way for us the passage from a 15th century style to a 16th century style. So the painter is clearly completely aware of the importance of the distance of the figure, of the different type of figures that are, living in earth, figures that are living in the heaven, but also is clearly, in some way, is a painting where Titian applies what Leonardo would have defined as prospettiva aerea, so the aerial perspective, where you take into consideration the value of lighted atmosphere in creating the image. So obviously, things that are farther away, things that are in heaven are less precise, because they are far away, and things that are closer to us are more defined in the sense of the form. What is extraordinary is that you can really appreciate it up close, the way in which Titian really applied the paint in these different ways according to the different areas of the painting, which maybe this responds also to one of the questions that I see in the chat.
And also, definitely interested in a video on Carpaccio cycles. I could think of at least, two of these that might count, connected to, say, Venice. And I mean, we're saying the most straightforward things, but really quite powerful. That as you restore a work of art, you learn so much new about how it was created in the first place. And I think we're really feeling like we're, Titian distance from this. In fact, one of my favorite quotations from David Rosand, I asked him, as other people had, how far away should one stand in a museum or a church from a painting, right? Should you see something from some distance? Should you be so close the frame is out of your range of vision? And he said the proper distance is the length of an arm plus one brush. i.e. the distance the painter enjoyed. And that's this allows us to do that again and again, but indeed go much further. And also to get back to Arnold's question, just to make sure that he heard this, that the carved figures are attributed to Giovanni Battista Bregno and Lorenzo Bregno on the amazing frame. We didn't even really know the materials of these things. They were so far away from the ground and, of course, covered in dust. So a real a chance to enjoy these all anew. Yes, and thank you, Lawrence Berman, for the point about the San Sebastiano restoration. And that is on our minds. And with the Veronese year coming up in 2028, that's a possibility. Certainly, there'll be a new guidebook to consider Veronese around Venice. But San Sebastiano is now, as the church, or Veronese particularly within it, is the subject of a beautiful paperback guidebook, largely written by Xavier Salomon, and an excellent book with lots of details, beautiful new photography, bibliography, that sort of thing.
And we are also producing a 15 minutes video documentary, also with Xavier Salomon as our guide into the church.
Okay, great. Any last questions? Or any comments that occur to you, Davide or Gabriele, as we close?
I just would like all of you for attending, and I hope you will enjoy the website, our book on Titian, which encompasses the restoration not only of the Assunta, but of other very important paintings by Titian, including the Madonna de Capesero, the presentation to the temple. We hope will come out just after the summer. So stay tuned for that. And we hope to still do other work on websites with Tintoretto, probably beginning with Tintoretto next one. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank all of you for supporting Save Venice and having the city of Venice and its great art right in the center of your hearts. Please stay in touch and look for more changes as this website becomes updated and becomes a great resource. Arrivederci.
Thank you. Arrivederci. Thank you.
Bye-bye.